Welcome to WHUR at Home. I'm Bramante Bryan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Here's a question for you. Have you ever been bull riding? If you answered yes, my guess you would be in the minority. Uh, in the majority. I can't remember because I'm trying to get to minority. Let's see. If you answered yes, you would be in the minority. If you answered no, you would be in the majority, and I would be in the majority if you don't count sort of bull riding at, one of these little mechanical bulls in the restaurants. Well, tonight we have a special guest who has done it and who has done it well and who has been honored worldwide. Joining us tonight is Nick Jackson. He is the junior world bull riding champion, and his dad, Corey, will join us. And we're going to talk about how Nick became the junior world riding bull champion. Mr. Jackson, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having us.
All right, Nick, listen. I sort of screwed up how I was trying to intro the minority and the majority. As I said, I think the majority of us have never ridden a bull. How old are you, first of all, Nick?
I'm 13 years old. I turned 13 in January.
And when did you first start riding a bull?
Well, I started riding 6 years ago, so I was 7 years old when I started riding bulls.
Oh my gosh, 7. So tell us how this journey began. How does one say, I want to learn how to ride a bull, especially at 7, even though I guess at 7 we want to do just any and everything. But how did bull riding come about for you?
Well, in our family, we have 5 generations of cowboys in our family. And so the cowboy lineage just came down on me. And then we had this rodeo. It was called the Bill Pickett Rodeo, and it came around once a year. And I did the mutton busting in it. And that's like the step away from starting bulls. And so my dad signed me up in this high school rodeo, and it's called the Maryland High School Rodeo Association. And so I did that till I was 6 years old for mutton busting. But at 7, you age out. So after mutton busting, you go on to the mini bulls, and that's how it all started.
Now, you mentioned Bill Pickett. Now, I will say I do know a little bit about Bill Pickett, African-American, but here you are now in 2021 and the years before when you first started. Talk a little bit about, if you can, Nick, what it's been like for you as a young African-American man in bull riding. Do you stand out from that standpoint, or are there a lot more African-American youth in bull riding? Help us understand it a little bit.
Well, today's day, there are more African American kids coming into bull riding, but not a lot of them are coming to the bull riding and riding.
And so what's that been for you? Do you feel that you're standing out, or do you not really even focus on that, and your focus is getting on that bull and trying to stay on it?
Yes, sir. Well, when everybody gets there, all the bull riders get there for one purpose, and it's to cover their bull and try and win. So when I get to the bull riding, I just keep that mindset as all I got to do is just cover my bull. Don't worry about whatever anybody else is doing.
Now, Dad, Nick talked about he comes from a legacy of cowboys and bull riders. Would that be correct? And if so, are you one?
Not bull riders, just cowboys.
Just cowboys. Okay, I want to be clear.
Cowboys.
So you don't ride a bull?
I've tried it, but I'm not as good as he is.
And so, what were your thoughts when your son said, "Hey, Dad, Mom, Dad, I want to do this"? What were you thinking?
Well, I mean, it was natural. It's all cowboy. That's what we do. So, just like, a family that comes from a lineage of athletes, it's natural for the kids to go into athletics, whether it be baseball, basketball, football, those traditional sports. So for a Western-based family whose lineage is horses and training horses, it's quite natural for the kids to want to go in the rodeo.
What's it been like for you, Nick, just in terms of the training? I have kids who are 17 and 15, and they were in swimming, very early, but not competitive swimming. But I know family members who have kids in competitive swimming, and you have to get up early. You have to go to meets on the weekends when it's cold out. I know your parents and dad, you can talk about this too. Sometimes they've had to drive you at least 6 hours to get into these competitions. What's that been like? I know it's fun, but is it also hard?
Well, I mean, coming with these 6-hour drives and going to get on these bulls, it can be a little hard from the drive, but you just got to keep in the mindset that it might be hard, but down the road, this is all going to pay off big time.
Now, Nick, we should let folks know who are watching this that you're local, that you guys live in Upper Marlboro. And Dad, tell me about bull riding just living here in Maryland. Is it restrictive? Are there opportunities to practice that folks may not know about, something that you can add for those who look at Nick as an inspiration in doing what he's doing, say if they live in Maryland or the Maryland, D.C. metro area?
Yeah, so that's where those 6-hour round trip, 10-hour round trip drives come into play, because there aren't any places, or aren't many places, to get on live bulls and practice. So just last night, every Monday night we drive 6 hours to we drive 6 hours round trip to Pennsylvania. Wow. To go to a facility to get on bulls. Sometimes we drive 10 hours for an opportunity to practice. When we compete nationwide. So we could be in Virginia, we could be, West Virginia, we could be in Pennsylvania, or we could be in Texas, Oklahoma, Utah, Idaho, any other Western states west of the Mississippi. So, it's something that we definitely have to invest in. There's a lot of time, a lot of effort, money that goes unspoken, of course, that. But like Nick said, it's what we do. He's a world champion, so it's gotten us there. And we work off of the motto, we're at the top right now. He's number one in the world. And it was hard to get there, but it's going to be even harder to stay there.
I was going to say that, as an old sports reporter, you often talk to athletes and coaches, and they say, it's great getting there, but it's harder to stay there. Nick, I've seen you pop up here and there. I've seen you on the news and stories, and you're a world champion. So a lot of attention comes with that. Even if folks say, well, I don't know a whole lot about bull riding, but you are special in the sense of who you are, what you're doing. It's a rarity. So that puts a lot of focus on you. What's the attention been like for a 13-year-old?
Well, I never in a million years thought this would happen, and it's been a really cool experience, and it's been a very teachable experience, because I've learned I've been doing a lot of interviews, been learning how to do them correctly, because as a kid, still as a kid, I don't do a lot of interviews, so it's pretty cool to try them and being able to learn how to do them correctly.
Do most interviewers start off their interviews with you almost a little bit like I did? Who knows a whole lot about bull riding? Who knows anybody who even rides a bull? How many people know African-American teenage bull riders? I'm assuming you get a lot of that.
Yes, sir.
Well, that could be a good thing. You have brothers, sisters?
Yes, sir. I have 2 twin sisters that are both 10. And I have a little brother, he's 7 years old, and my big brother, who's 14.
Okay, so Dad, you say you got a long legacy of cowboys. Now we're starting maybe a legacy of bull riders. Tell me about the sisters, the brother that's a little older, and the
youngest. Yeah.
Are there bull riders there to follow Nick?
There is. His little brother, who is soon to be 8. Right. He's following right in Nicholas's footsteps, and he's a champion in his own right. Nick's sisters, his twin sisters, Ryan and Reagan, they're cowgirls. They're right on his heels. They're champions. They're Maryland State champions. They barrel race, goat tie, pole bend, and they're going to start calf roping, breakaway roping soon. Wow. So, we're truly a rodeo family. Everyone, all the kids compete. I'm their coach and their trainer, as well as train the horses. My wife participates as well. Our oldest son, he's our special needs son. He's our special guy. He doesn't compete, but he rides here on our farm in Upper Marlboro. And he is the kids' biggest supporter, biggest cheer at the rodeo. So we're just one big rodeo family. We're getting after it.
Yeah. I had a great aunt who lived in Wyoming for most of her adult life. And, I didn't know anything about Wyoming, but I remember my other aunt, her sister, would go down there periodically. And one of the big things in Cheyenne, I guess it was called Cheyenne Days or
Cheyenne Frontier Days.
Frontier Days. And my
daddy
aunt,
of them all.
Yeah. And I was supposed to go. My aunt who lived here in the area had passed away, but I always sort of remembered that. And you already were walking into it. Is that something, Nick, have you been involved in that? Or talk a little bit about events like Cheyenne Frontier Days. What does that do for folks like yourself who are in that life of frontier life, cowboys and cowgirls? And Nick or Dad, both you guys can jump in on that.
Yeah, so the Cheyenne Frontier Days, that's a renowned rodeo, and it's a professional rodeo. So Nicholas, he's 13. He won't turn adult pro until he's 18. But as a kid that rodeos, the Cheyenne Frontier Days is like, playing in a playoff game, in any sport. It's like playing in Madison Square Garden, just a renowned sports complex. That's what Cheyenne Frontier Days is in rodeo. You, as a professional, you want to go to Cheyenne. And
so, Nick, what's next? What's your next competition? What are you preparing for? I know you told me before we started that you're homeschooled, but school is school, so you still got to work on your books. And I'm assuming that you're probably a very good student. So, what's next for you in terms of competition?
Well, at the end of the month, I have a high school rodeo in Pennsylvania. Wow. And then this year, we're really getting forward. We're getting ready in the summer for another big rodeo in Texas, which is called the Junior NFR, which stands for the Junior National Finals Rodeo.
Now, I was going to ask you in our last couple of minutes, what advice you would give to other young boys or girls, and especially those African-American boys or girls who might be interested in getting into this. But let me pose that question now, and then I'll give my next question after that. Is there any advice that you would give to other young folks like yourself who might be thinking about or seeing this interview saying, oh, maybe I want to try that? What would you tell them, Nick?
Well, you might stand out, but that doesn't mean that you can't do it. I mean, there's a lot of people that stand out in different things, but they still do it. So no matter what you look like, you can still do anything you want.
And Dad, I know you had told me that you were originally from Winston-Salem.
Yes, sir.
North Carolina. And in the last couple of minutes, I did want to ask you this. Very often what we have seen historically is that the cowboys were white. But what we know historically is cowboys were black,
Absolutely.
The first cowboys were black. Do you find that sometimes you have to re-educate folks when you're in their presence, or has that not been an issue at all for you?
No, absolutely. When the cowboy was romanticized by the silver screen, our stories were left off. And we saw the Lone Ranger and John Wayne and Dale Evans and Roy Rogers. And so our stories were whitewashed. Actually, the Lone Ranger is really about a black lawman. His name is Bass Reeves. He was a bad mofo. He was the baddest deputy U.S. Marshal in the West. But that story got whitewashed and turned into the Lone Ranger. So, everywhere we go, when folks kind of look, we do get the looks. It's like, oh, okay, well, they're here. But at this point in time, Nick is the #1 guy in the world. Everyone knows who he is. He's the guy to beat. And he just happens to be a young African-American young man. So anytime we have a chance to educate folks, we will.
All right, Nick. So as a older young man who's only been on sort of a bull, I think maybe at Outback Steakhouse on my birthday, and I stayed on. So, Nick, what advice would you give to me if I said, you know what, I talked to Nick Jackson and his dad, and I left the studio and I thought maybe I'd want to try that. Is this something only for the young at heart, or can someone of my middle age do this? What advice would you give me?
Well, the top thing is being healthy physically and mentally. That's the number one thing with bull riding at any age, really. It's just how you're doing mentally and physically. That's what it is.
Well, Nick, I think everything you're doing mentally and physically, you're doing it well. You are the junior world bull riding champion. We want to congratulate you on that. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep excelling. You may not have done a whole lot of interviews, but trust me, what you're doing it well. Okay, because I've interviewed a lot of folks. So you're handling yourself well, Dad. You and the wife are doing well. So we thank you so much. Congratulate you on all your achievements, Dad, all your work, and the same to your wife. And we'll look for the other Jacksons riding bulls. Maybe if I get to Frontier Days one day out there in Wyoming, I'll look for you.
Yeah.
Nick Jackson, thank you so much for joining us. And Corey Jackson, his dad, thank you for joining us. And for all of you out there watching, we thank you for joining us here on WHUR at Home. Make sure that you can check out all of our WHUR at Home programs on WHUR.com. I'm Bramante Bryant. Again, thank you for joining us. Have a great night, and we'll see you next time.